In antiquity, the Franks were just one of the small Germanic communities that inhabited what is now Germany. In the 4th century AD, the Franks settled in northern Gaul, which was then under the rule of the Roman Empire. So how did the Franks, who started as a confederation of tribes, become one of the most powerful people in Europe? To find out how this happened, we must go back to the 1st century BC. In the 1st century BC, Gaul was conquered by the Roman general Julius Caesar. From then on, the Rhine became the border between Rome and the Germanic communities. The Romans engaged in a centuries-long struggle for dominance with the Germanic peoples across the river. The Franks were one of the Germanic groups living here, and like the other Germanic communities, they struggled with the Romans. However, by the 4th century, the Franks' relations with Rome took a different turn. In 358, the Salian Franks allied themselves with Rome. This allowed them to settle in the Roman province of Belgica Secunda. Settling in this province, they established a kingdom centered on the capital Tournai and promised to provide military support to the Romans in times of need. Clovis, who was born about 100 years after the Salian Franks made this treaty with the Romans, is today considered one of the most important figures in French history. Clovis would transform the Franks from a small-scale community organized as tribes into one of the most powerful states of the period and lay the foundations of today's France. Clovis was born in an estimated year 466. His father, Childeric, was king of the Salian Franks. In the early years of his rule, Childeric was careful to maintain an allied relationship with the Romans. However, by 472, the Burgundian kingdom and the Visigoths had seized Roman territory in Gaul. In 476, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustus, was deposed by Flavius Odoacer. Thus, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. 5 years later, in 481, Childeric died and was succeeded by his son Clovis. Clovis was eager to expand his country's territory by taking advantage of the opportunities that arose after Rome's withdrawal from the region. However, he was only 15 years old when he came to the throne. Due to his age, he first had to establish his power among the nobles and people of his country. During the first 5 years of his reign, he consolidated his authority in his country and completed his preparations. In 486, he decided to attack his southern neighbor, the Kingdom of Soissons. The Kingdom of Soissons was ruled by a man named Syagrius. Syagrius' father Aegidius was the ruler of the Western Roman Empire's province of Gaul, and in 461 he declared his independence, taking advantage of the decline of the Western Roman Empire's authority in the region. After Aegidius died in 464, the throne passed to his son Syagrius. Clovis had strengthened his position among the Franks over the years. But defeating the Kingdom of Soissons alone would not be easy. He needed support to defeat Syagrius. He therefore made attempts to ally with Ragnachar, king of Cambrai, and Chaleric, presumably king of the city of Tongeren. Ragnachar and Chararic were kings of different Frankish factions, and both were close relatives of Clovis. Ragnachar did not refuse Clovis's request for help and agreed to support him. Chararic, on the other hand, did not believe that the war could be won, so he refused Clovis's offer. The combined Frankish forces and Syagrius's army met in 486 near the city of Soissons. Both sides suffered heavy losses in the battle. However, at the end of the battle, it was Syagrius who were left on the losing side. Syagrius, realizing that he would be defeated, fled and sought refuge with the Visigoth king Alaric II, in the hope of gathering help to save his throne. But Alaric did not want to fight the Franks. So instead of helping Syagrius, he captured him and sent him to Clovis. Clovis had Syagrius executed and seized the lands of the Kingdom of Soissons, including Paris. After this victory, the Franks, under the leadership of Clovis, began to expand their borders to the south. However, they needed allies to hold on to the region. For this purpose, Clovis married Clotilde, the niece of King Gundobad of Burgundy, in 493. Unlike her husband, Clotilde was a Catholic Christian, When in Gomer their first child was born, Clotilde insisted that he be baptized as a Christian. As a result of her insistence, the baby was baptized. However, shortly after his birth, the baby became seriously ill and died. Clovis, a pagan, thought that the child died because he had been baptized. When their second son Clodomir was born, Clotilde, a devout Christian, insisted that he be baptized as well. After he was baptized, he too fell ill, but soon recovered and regained his health. During this time, Clotilde was constantly encouraging her husband to become a Christian. Over time, her influence on Clovis began to warm him to Christianity. However, it was only after the war with the Alemanni that Clovis would become a full-fledged Christian. The Alemanni, a Germanic tribal confederation, had for some time been engaged in border disputes and plundering activities with the Ripuarian Franks under King Sigebert. Recently, these plundering activities have begun to increase. In 496, the Alemanni marched on Sigebert with a large force, whereupon Sigebert asked Clovis for help. Clovis responded positively to this request and organized an army to fight the Alemanni. Clovis and Sigebert's army and the Alemanni army faced each other in a battle called the Battle of Tolbiac. According to the historian Gregory, the Franks suffered many casualties in the battle. Faced with this desperate situation, Clovis decided to pray to Jesus, whom his wife preached to him constantly. Shortly after the prayer ended, the Franks gained the upper hand on the battlefield. The king of the Alemanni died on the battlefield, and the Alemanni surrendered to Clovis. After this battle, Clovis became a Christian on Christmas Day, 496, baptized in the Rhine with about 3,000 of his soldiers. Gregory the historian's account seems to be a rather romanticized account of Clovis's conversion to Christianity. However, historians' speculations on this subject offer us a more pragmatic perspective. One of the most common views is that the influence of Clovis's wife on Clovis may have caused him to convert to Christianity. Another view is that the support of Christian states could have strengthened Clovis's hand as a Christian fighting against pagan tribes. The fact that Clovis needed such support in his campaign against the Alemanni might have pushed him to convert to Christianity in order to avoid the same situation in the future. Despite these speculations, the exact reasons for Clovis's conversion to Christianity remain unknown due to the paucity of historical records. In 500, Clovis was presented with an unexpected opportunity. Godegisel, the brother of King Gundobad of Burgundy, wanted to become king of Burgundy. To realize this ambition, he had to depose his brother Gundobad from the throne of Burgundy. However, it was very difficult for him to do this alone, so he decided to ask Clovis for help. For this purpose, he sent envoys to Clovis and offered him an annual tax in exchange for his support against Gundobad. Clovis thought it would be in his interest to take advantage of this dispute between the two brothers, so he accepted the offer and traveled with his army to Burgundy to join Godegisel's army. Godegisel's army, supported by Clovis, and Gundobad's army met near the city of Dijon. Clovis and Godegisel won the battle, helped by their numerical advantage. After the defeat, Gundobad retreated to the city of Avignon. Clovis followed him and laid siege to the city. Godegisel left Clovis with his army to lay siege to Vienne, the capital of Burgundy. Seeing that his brother's army had separated from Clovis's army, Gundobad made an offer to Clovis, hoping to make a deal with him. The offer was that if Clovis lifted the siege and returned to his country, Gundobad would pay him the annual tribute he demanded. Clovis's main goal was to collect an annual tribute from the kingdom of Burgundy. It did not matter to him who ruled Burgundy. So he accepted Gundobad's offer, lifted the siege, and returned to his country. After the siege was lifted, Gundobad defeated his brother Godegisel's army and had him killed, becoming the sole ruler of the country. Thus, Burgundy became a kingdom that paid taxes to the Franks. In 507, Clovis decided to launch an expedition against the Visigoths. King Alaric II, the Visigoth king, had previously surrendered Syagrius to Clovis to establish good relations with him. Until 507, peace between the two states was maintained except for minor border conflicts. However, the recent internal turmoil in the Visigoth lands offered Clovis the opportunity to easily conquer the Visigoth lands, and Clovis was eager to seize this opportunity. The Visigoth king Alaric followed the Christian doctrine of Arianism. This doctrine rejected the Christian belief in the Trinity and held that Jesus was a mortal being created by God. This teaching was considered heresy by Catholics. Many Catholics in the Visigoth country were therefore uncomfortable with Alaric's rule. Clovis, as a Catholic Christian, was beginning to be seen as a savior by the Catholics in the Visigoth country. He wanted to use this situation to his advantage. For this purpose, Clovis decided to go to war against the Visigoths in 507. In order to gain the support of the Catholics in the Visigoth lands, he forbade his soldiers to plunder. In this way, he managed to portray himself as a savior, not an invader. The Frankish army and the Visigoth army faced each other at the Battle of Vouilly. In this battle, the Visigoths suffered a heavy defeat. King Alaric lost his life on the battlefield. After this victory, Clovis conquered the region from the south of the Loire River to the Pyrenees Mountains. With the conquest of this territory, Clovis was in fact in control of a large part of what is now France. However, the Franks were still not united under a single king. Sigebert, king of the Ripuarian Franks, and Clovis's relatives Ragnachar and Chararic ruled as kings of different Frankish communities. Clovis felt that this could undermine his authority in the future. If his country fell into a weak state in the future, these Frankish kingdoms could unite against him and become a great threat. To prevent this, he had to unite all the Franks under his rule. In order to accomplish this, Clovis first instigated King Sigebert's son Clodoric to kill his father and become the new king. Clodoric took action and sent assassins to kill his father. He then sent a messenger to Clovis, asking him to send his soldiers to carry his share of his father's treasure. Clovis sent his soldiers to Clodoric, but he did not send them to take Sigebert's share of the treasure. Clovis ordered his soldiers to kill Clodoric. When the soldiers received this order, they confronted Clodoric and killed him. Clovis's plan had worked exactly as he wanted it to. But there was one more thing he had to do. After Clodoric's death, Clovis came to the region and told Clodoric's tribal chiefs that he was worried about the death of their king Sigebert. He told them that Clodoric, who had killed Sigebert, had been punished by Clovis himself and offered them his protection. The tribal chiefs whose kings and princes had been killed had no choice but to come under Clovis's rule, so they accepted this offer. Thus, Clovis subjugated the Ripuarian Franks without any war. After this victory, it was the turn of another Frankish king, Cararic. Although Cararic was Clovis's relative, he did not support him in the war against the kingdom of Soissons. Clovis felt he had to eliminate Chararic to prevent such a situation from happening again. To this end, he captured Chararic, imprisoned him in a monastery, and seized his lands. However, after a while, he learned that Chararic was planning to escape from the monastery and take revenge, so he ordered him to be killed. After Chararic's death, the only Frankish leader other than Clovis was King Ragnachar of Cambrai. Ragnachar was a relative of Clovis and had supported Clovis in the war against the kingdom of Soissons. Nevertheless, he was the greatest danger to Frankish unity. After Clovis converted to Christianity and was baptized, a significant number of his soldiers deserted him and joined Ragnachar, who was a pagan. That is why Clovis first conquered the Frankish kings, whom he considered weak, and left Ragnachar for last. In order to weaken Ragnachar's power, Clovis sent valuable items to Ragnachar's tribal chiefs and asked them to join him. The tribal chiefs accepted these gifts and decided to side with Clovis, who they thought was more likely to win a possible war. This was the end of Ragnachar. After a battle with Ragnachar, Clovis defeated Ragnachar, had him killed, and took over his lands. Thus, all the Franks were united under the rule of one man, Clovis. Before Clovis, the Franks were a warlike people living under the rule of the Romans. With the withdrawal of the Western Roman Empire from the stage of history, they had the opportunity to expand their lands. Under the leadership of Clovis, they defeated the other communities in the region one by one and managed to become one of the most important powers in Europe. In a short time, they would mix with the Celts, the indigenous people of the region, adopt Roman culture, and lay the foundations of today's French society.